No one on Earth noticed when the signal arrived. It didn't trigger alarms or emergency broadcasts. It didn't interrupt markets or stop traffic. It slipped quietly into deep space receivers on the far side of the planet, weak and distorted, almost lost among the background noise of the universe. If one technician hadn't decided to double-check an anomaly at 3 in the morning, it might have been missed entirely. By sunrise, Admiral Chris Donovan was already awake. He hadn't gone to bed. At 3:02 a.m., his secure line rang, dragging him out of a half-sleep filled with unfinished battles and old regrets. The voice on the other end belonged to a fleet command officer he had known for years, a man who had faced combat without flinching. Tonight, that voice was unsteady. "Sir, we received a transmission. Long range. Non-standard routing. It's bad." 30 minutes later, Donovan was driving through empty Colorado Springs streets, the city lights blurring past his windshield. The underground complex beneath Cheyenne Mountain was alive when he arrived, too alive. Personnel moved fast, speaking in low, urgent tones, eyes fixed on screens filled with data streams that hadn't existed yesterday. Something had changed. In the main communications chamber, the recording was already cued. Donovan stood silently as the lights dimmed. The image flickered, stabilizing into the face of a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back carelessly, dark circles etched beneath her eyes. Behind her, visible through reinforced glass, enormous shadows drifted past, angular, predatory shapes blotting out distant stars. "This is Dr. Kate Holloway, Nexus Station 7, she said, her voice tight but controlled. "We are under siege by the Dravishi Collective." The room seemed to stop breathing. "There are 12,000 civilians on this station," she continued. 43 of them are human. We have contacted the Galactic Council, the Syndicate, the Dominion, everyone. All requests for aid have been denied." Something cracked in her expression. "Our shields are failing. We estimate 4 days, maybe less. If anyone can hear this, please. We need help." The recording ended. No one spoke. Chris Donovan had spent nearly 3 decades in uniform. He had commanded troops in wars humanity pretended it had learned from. He had ordered strikes that saved cities and others that haunted him still. He understood numbers, risk assessment, political fallout. He also understood silence. "How far?" he asked finally. A technician swallowed. "Approximately 6,000 light-years, sir. Disputed rim territory. Assets. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is near the border. 18 ship. Training rotation. How fast?" "At maximum burn 4 days." Donovan nodded slowly. "Close enough to matter. Close enough to fail." He turned away from the screen and began making calls. The first went to Fleet Admiral Susan Price. She listened without interruption, her face unreadable. When he finished, she leaned back and exhaled. "You have operational authority," she said. "Whatever happens next, that's on me." The second call went higher, to the United Nations Secretary General. Donovan laid out the facts. No treaties. No alliances. No legal protection. Tony Vance's response was immediate. "They're human. That's the only justification I need." The third call was personal. His daughter answered from Seattle, laughing about something her son had done at school. Donovan didn't mention space or war or alien fleets. He just listened. When the call ended, he sat quietly for a moment longer than necessary. Then he gave the order. Across the void, Captain Sam Reyes received the transmission aboard the carrier Lincoln. He read it once, then again. Then he closed his eyes. "Senior staff. Briefing room. Now." The officers gathered quickly. Tactical displays filled the walls, projecting Nexus Station 7 and the ring of Dravishi warships around it. "Civilian station," Reyes said calmly. "Under siege. Council refused intervention. We're the closest fleet." Commander Lisa Grant studied the numbers. "Dravishi tech outclasses ours. 12 ship. Heavy armor." Reyes nodded. "I know. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morris frowned. Sir, this could trigger a broader conflict. Reyes met his gaze. Letting 12,000 civilians die would trigger something worse. He straightened. I won't force anyone to go, he said. If you want reassignment, I'll approve it. No one moved. Then prepare the fleet, Reyes said. We jump in 4 hours. 18 human warships altered course, engines flaring as they accelerated toward the edge of known space. On Earth, governments said nothing. Across the galaxy, no one noticed. And around Nexus Station 7, the Dravishi commander watched the shields weaken, confident and unchallenged. No one ever came this far to interfere. The siege tightened with every passing hour. From the command deck of the Dravishi flagship, High Commander Threxel observed Nexus Station 7 with cold satisfaction. The station rotated slowly beneath his fleet, its shield shimmer growing weaker, thinner, like the skin of a dying animal. Energy readings confirmed what he already knew. Time was on his side. The Dravishi collective did not rush victories. They waited. They starved. They broke their enemies before ever setting foot aboard. Threxel turned his elongated head toward his tactical officer. Estimate until shield collapse. 78 standard hours, the officer replied. Possibly less if we increase pressure. Threxel considered it, then dismissed the idea with a flick of his clawed hand. No. Let them watch the end approach. Fear was a weapon, one the Dravishi had mastered long before humans had learned to shape metal. Inside Nexus Station 7, fear had become a constant companion. Dr. Kate Holloway moved through corridors filled with exhausted faces. Scientists, families, station crew, species from across the galaxy, all pretending not to glance toward the reinforced windows where enemy ships drifted like dark gods. Emergency lighting bathed everything in pale amber, the color of waiting. The Council's refusal had spread quickly. There were no speeches left, no comforting lies. Everyone knew the truth. They were alone. Kate entered the medical wing, where improvised triage stations filled what had once been research labs. Dr. Ben Carter was hunched over a console, reviewing shield decay models that all ended the same way. You should rest, he said without looking up. She gave a humorless smile. I'll rest when the station stops shaking. Ben leaned back, rubbing his eyes. If the Dravishi board, it won't be quick. Kate didn't answer. She already knew. She thought of Earth more often now. Of Ohio skies and wind through cornfield. Of her parents' last message, sent months ago, full of pride and casual love. She wondered if they would ever know how close she'd come to vanishing into the dark. Any response? She asked quietly. Ben shook his head. Nothing. The last burst barely cleared the jamming field. She nodded, staring at the shield readouts projected on the wall. 17%. Falling. Far away, human ships burned toward them. The Third Expeditionary Fleet tore through faster-than-light corridors, their drives pushed beyond comfort margins. Engineers slept in shifts beside humming consoles, waking only when alarms flared and numbers dipped into unsafe ranges. Captain Sam Reyes stood on the Lincoln's bridge, hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the forward display. The stars stretched into pale lines as the fleet raced onward. Commander Lisa Grant approached, lowering her voice. We're shaving minutes, sir. But pushing this hard risks drive failure on at least 2 destroyers. Reyes nodded. Tell engineering to reroute auxiliary power. We slow down, they die. Lisa hesitated. If the Council intervenes. They won't, Reyes said calmly. They've already made that clear. Lieutenant Danny Marsh's voice cut in from the fighter control pit. Pilots are ready. Morale's high. Reyes allowed himself a small smile. They always are. The fleet was young by galactic standard. Ships patched together through trial, error, and stubborn innovation. Weapons the Council dismissed as crude. Armor they called inefficient. But humans had never relied on elegance. They relied on refusal. 6 hours out, alarms flared across the Lincoln. FTL emergence signatures detected. Ensign Amy Chun reported. Multiple Dravashi patrol craft ahead of the main force. Reyes straightened. There's screening. Lisa's fingers danced across her console. If we engage now, we lose surprise. If we don't, Reyes replied, they warn the fleet. He made his decision instantly. Destroy them. Clean and fast. Human destroyers surged forward. Rail cannons fired without warning, slugs ripping through space at fractions of light speed. Dravashi patrol ships never transmitted a single alert. They died in silence, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. No one celebrated. They jumped again. At Nexus Station 7, the first shield segment collapsed. The station shuddered violently. Screams echoed through the corridors as artificial gravity flickered. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off entire sections. Kate was thrown against a railing, pain flashing up her arm. She forced herself upright, heart hammering. "Report!" someone shouted. "Outer ring compromised. Environmental breach in Sector 12. The station groaned like a wounded animal. On the Dravashi flagship, Threxal watched with approval. "Prepare boarding forces," he ordered. "We begin harvest soon." Then his sensors screamed. "Multiple FTL exits," an officer barked. "Unknown vessels, human configuration." For the first time in decades, Threxal felt uncertainty. Space twisted, and 18 human warships tore into existence between the Dravashi fleet and the station. They arrived in perfect formation. The Lincoln loomed at the center, scarred hull gleaming under shield glow. Destroyers flanked her, weapons already hot. Fighter bays opened like hungry mouths. On the bridge, Ensign Chun spoke with controlled awe. "They're right on top of us." Reyes didn't waste time. "Open channel." The Dravashi commander appeared, towering and armored, eyes filled with disdain. "This territory is under Dravashi claim," Threxal hissed. "Withdraw immediately." Reyes' voice was calm, steady. "You are attacking a civilian station containing human citizens. Withdraw your fleet." Threxal laughed. "You are insects with guns." Reyes cut the channel. "All batteries," he said softly. "Fire." The first volley shattered the illusion of Dravashi superiority. Rail slugs punched through shields thought invincible. Missiles bloomed like suns against hulls not built to withstand kinetic fury. Fighters screamed through the chaos, tearing into exposed systems with surgical brutality. Kate watched from the station window, mouth open, breath caught in her chest. Human ships didn't hesitate. They didn't retreat. They charged. Hope, raw and terrifying, flooded the station. Ben whispered, "They came." Outside, the battle ignited into something the galaxy had never seen. And it was only beginning. The first minutes of the battle shattered every assumption the Dravashi Collective had ever held about humanity. High Commander Threxal watched his tactical display collapse into chaos. One cruiser vanished in a blossom of white-hot debris before its shields could even finish cycling. Another lost propulsion, spinning helplessly as human fighters tore into its exposed engine housing. "This is not possible," he snarled. "Their weapons are primitive. They are ignoring shield harmonics," his tactical officer replied, panic bleeding into his voice. "They are striking with kinetic mass at extreme velocity. Our defenses were not designed for this." Threxal slammed a clawed fist into the console. The galaxy had not faced a species willing to fight like this in centuries. On the bridge of the Lincoln, Captain Sam Reyes stood unmoving amid controlled chaos. Reports flowed in from every direction: damage assessments, kill confirmations, fighter losses. He absorbed it all without comment. "Enemy formation breaking," Commander Lisa Grant reported. "They're attempting to reposition." "Don't let them," Reyes said. "Press the flanks. Force them inward." Human ships moved as if sharing a single mind. Destroyers surged forward, overlapping fire zones so no enemy vessel could isolate a target. When one ship took damage, two more slid into place to shield it. Lieutenant Danny Marsh led his fighter wing straight into the heart of the Dravishi formation. "Red Squadron on me," he called. "We're threading the needle." Energy beams lanced past his cockpit, close enough to light the canopy in flashes of blue and violet. His hands were steady, his breathing slow. This was what he had trained for. Human fighters weren't stronger or more advanced than their enemies. They were faster to adapt. They flew unpredictably, breaking patterns, exploiting hesitation. They didn't duel. They swarmed. A Dravishi destroyer tried to bring its main guns to bear on the Lincoln. Marsh's squadron reached it first. Concentrated fire tore into sensor arrays, blinding the ship. Moments later, a coordinated missile strike from human destroyers finished it. On Nexus Station 7, the station shook again, but this time, not from damage. Cheers erupted in sealed compartments as enemy ships began to fall. Dr. Kate Holloway gripped the edge of the observation deck, tears streaking her face. She had prepared herself for death. She had accepted it. She had not prepared herself for rescue. Ben stood beside her, laughing softly in disbelief. "They're pushing them back." Kate nodded, unable to speak. Back in space, the Dravishi attempted to regroup. "Signal the flagship," Threxal commanded. "Full withdrawal vector. We will not lose the fleet here." The flagship began to turn, engines flaring. Reyes saw it instantly. "They're running," he said. Lisa glanced at him. "If the flagship escapes, they'll bring reinforcements. This becomes a war." Reyes' jaw tightened. "Then we end it here. Signal Kennedy, Hamilton, Monroe," he ordered. "All fire on the flagship's engines." 3 destroyers broke formation, accelerating hard. Rail cannons fired in perfect sequence. The flagship's shields held, for seconds. Then they collapsed. The next volley tore into the engine cluster. The massive Dravishi vessel lurched, power cascading across its hull. Fires erupted. Systems died one by one. "Flagship disabled," Lisa confirmed. Silence followed. Across the battlefield, surviving Dravishi ships hesitated. Reyes opened a channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is the United Earth Fleet," he said. "Your flagship is disabled. You have one option. Power down and surrender." One by one, Dravishi ships complied. One did not. It attempted to flee. Human fighters caught it before it cleared the engagement zone. It died in a silent flash. 47 minutes after the first shot, the battle ended. Space was littered with wreckage, once proud warships reduced to drifting scars against the stars. On the Lincoln, no one cheered. They went to work. Rescue operations began immediately. Shuttles streamed toward Nexus Station 7, carrying medics, engineers, and security teams. Damaged human ships held position, covering the station in case of reinforcements. Kate felt the first docking impact through the deck beneath her feet. A human voice echoed through the station's emergency channel. "This is the United Earth Fleet. You're safe now." She sank to her knees. The hours that followed blurred together. Medical teams moved with relentless focus, treating wounds, stabilizing life support, restoring power to sealed sectors. Human engineers worked alongside station crews, sharing tools, shouting instructions across language barriers that somehow no longer mattered. Captain Sam Reyes didn't rest. He stood in the station command hub, issuing orders, reviewing casualty reports. 2 human destroyers lost. Dozens dead. He accepted the numbers silently. Dr. Kate Holloway found him there hours later. He looked older up close. Exhaustion etched deep into his face. "Captain," she said. He turned. "Doctor. How's the station?" "Damaged," she replied. "But alive." He nodded. "That's enough." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her since the fleet arrived. "Why?" she said. "You had no obligation. The council refused. You could have turned back." Reyes looked past her, out toward the stars. "Because someone asked for help," he said. "And we heard it." The evacuation took 2 days. 12,000 lives were carried away from the edge of extinction. Refugees filled human ships, aliens, humans, children clinging to parents who had already accepted they would never leave that station alive. When the last transport departed, Nexus Station 7 went dark. Its people were safe. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. A young species had defied the collective, had shattered a siege, had acted when every ancient power had looked away. In council chambers light years away, unease took root. Humanity had crossed a line, and nothing would be the same again. The galaxy reacted slowly at first. Information traveled fast, but belief did not. Reports from Nexus Station 7 conflicted with everything the great powers thought they understood. A minor species, barely 4 decades into interstellar travel, had confronted the Dravishi collective and won. Not with diplomacy, not with superior numbers, with force. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, disbelief turned to argument. Ambassador Thorin of the Kalani Dominion sat rigid as holographic battle reconstructions played above the central dais. Dravishi warships disintegrated under kinetic strike. Human fighters swarmed like living weapons. The disabled flagship drifted helplessly, a symbol of shattered certainty. This data must be flawed, a Varuan delegate snapped. Dravishi shielding cannot fail that quickly. It did, replied a syndicate analyst coldly. We've confirmed the wreckage signatures. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. They violated council non-intervention statutes, another voice argued. They acted without authorization. And saved 12,000 lives we abandoned, someone else shot back. Thorin said nothing. He remembered dismissing the distress signal without hesitation. Remembered thinking the station insignificant. He did not make that mistake again. While politicians debated, the human fleet worked. Captain Sam Reyes oversaw the final phases of evacuation from the command deck of the Lincoln. Refugee ships departed in steady waves, escorted by destroyers still bearing scorch marks from battle. Dr. Kate Holloway spent most of her time in medical bays, helping where she could, translating, comforting. She had slept only once since the battle, exhaustion held at bay by adrenaline and disbelief. She paused in a corridor as a group of alien children passed her, escorted by human marines. One waved at her shyly. She waved back. Ben Carter found her later, holding 2 cups of recycled station coffee. They're transferring the last data cores, he said. Everything we worked for, it's not lost. Kate took the cup, hands trembling slightly. I thought we were forgotten. So did I. Outside, human engineers detached boarding clamps from the disabled Dravishi flagship. Prisoners were transferred under heavy guard. Intelligence officers catalogued unfamiliar technology with quiet efficiency. Reyes watched it all from the bridge. Commander Lisa Grant stepped beside him. Long-range scans are clean. No incoming fleets. For now, Reyes replied. She hesitated. The council won't like this. Reyes didn't look at her. The council had their chance. On Earth, the silence finally broke. Governments released a single unified statement, transmitted across every known diplomatic channel. It contained no threats, no demands, only a declaration. When innocents are threatened and call for help, humanity will answer. The reaction was immediate. Trade blocs froze negotiations. Minor powers sent cautious messages of congratulations. Major empires demanded explanations, investigations, sanctions. Earth replied to none of them. On Nexus Station 7's former orbit, the last human ship turned away. The station itself was left behind, damaged, silent, but no longer a tomb. As the fleet regrouped, Reyes finally allowed himself to rest. He sat alone in his quarters, staring at a display showing casualty lists, names, faces. He recorded his after-action report without embellishment. Facts only. Losses. Decisions. Outcomes. When he finished, he sat quietly for a long time. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he said. Kate stepped inside. I wanted to say goodbye, she said. They're transferring us to Earth orbit. Reyes stood. You'll be safe there. She smiled faintly. I already am. She hesitated, then added, The galaxy thinks what you did was reckless. Reyes shrugged. They might be right. But necessary, she said. He met her eyes. Sometimes those are the same thing. As she turned to leave, she paused. Captain, whatever happens next, thank you. He nodded once. The fleet jumped for home hours later. Behind them, debris fields drifted. Ahead of them, uncertainty waited. In council space, Ambassador Thorin stood at his chamber window, staring into the star-dotted void. The galaxy had operated under the same assumptions for millennia. Strength ruled. Compassion was weakness. Intervention was risk. Humanity had ignored all of it. They will change everything, he murmured. Not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to look away. Earth did not celebrate. There were no parades, no triumphant speeches, no public declarations of victory. Most people went to work the next morning unaware that, far beyond their skies, a line had been crossed that could never be erased. For humanity, the Battle of Nexus Station 7 was not a conquest. It was an answer. And answers always carried consequences. In the days that followed, delegations arrived in Earth orbit from every corner of known space. Some came cautiously, hiding behind polite language and neutral tones. Others came angry, demanding explanations, restitution, apologies. A few came quietly, their messages encoded and private, seeking something far more valuable than arguments. They wanted to understand. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency session followed emergency session. The Dravishi Collective filed formal protests, their representatives furious and humiliated. Entire fleets had been lost to a species they had dismissed as irrelevant. Sanctions were proposed, then withdrawn. Military responses were discussed, then quietly shelved. No one wanted to be next. Ambassador Thorin watched the chaos unfold with growing unease. He had lived long enough to recognize turning points. This was one of them. Humanity had exposed a flaw in the galaxy's logic. They had proven that power did not always belong to the oldest or the largest. Sometimes it belonged to the one willing to act. On Earth, Admiral Chris Donovan stood before a small committee of civilian leaders and military commanders. He answered every question without defensiveness. He spoke of risk, of loss, of choice. When asked if he would authorize the mission again, knowing the political fallout it had caused, he did not hesitate. Yes, he said. Every time. No one argued. Captain Sam Reyes returned home without ceremony. His ship docked. His crew disembarked. Some would receive commendations. Others would receive folded flags. Reyes visited the families of the fallen in person. He did not soften the truth. He did not hide behind protocol. He stood in living rooms and kitchens, listening as much as he spoke, carrying their grief as his own. At night, when sleep finally came, he dreamed of stars burning and ships breaking apart. Dr. Kate Holloway arrived on Earth 3 weeks later. The sky above Ohio looked impossibly wide after years of metal corridors and artificial light. Her parents held her as if afraid she might disappear if they let go. News cameras waited at a distance, respectful for once. She declined interviews. Instead, she returned to work. Nexus Station 7 was gone, but its research lived on. Data salvaged during the evacuation became the foundation for new cooperative projects. One's Earth insisted remain open to all species, regardless of council standing. That insistence unsettled many. Ben Carter joined her weeks later. Together, they rebuilt what had been almost lost, driven not by ambition, but by gratitude. Across the galaxy, something subtle shifted. Distress calls that once went unanswered began to reach Earth frequencies. At first, they were cautious inquiries, then pleas. Pirate raids, blockades, civilian convoys threatened by powers too large to challenge. Humanity did not answer all of them. But when they did answer, they meant it. Small fleets appeared where no help had come before. Sometimes weapons were fired. Sometimes words were enough. The common thread was simple. Someone showed up. The Galactic Council adjusted its language. Intervention policies were rewritten. Risk calculations quietly expanded to include a new variable: human response. Ambassador Thorin requested a private audience with Earth's diplomatic corps months later. He arrived without armor, without ceremony. "You have disrupted balance," he said frankly. The human representative smiled politely. "We prefer the word corrected." Thorin studied them carefully. "You will make enemies." "We already have," came the reply. "And when the cost becomes unbearable?" The human did not hesitate. "Then we'll pay it." Thorin left with more questions than answers. Captain Reyes eventually returned to space. Not to war. To patrol. To presence. His fleet became something the galaxy had no word for, a deterrent not built on fear, but on certainty. If you attacked the helpless, someone would come. Not a threat. A promise. Years later, a new distress signal pulsed quietly through the void. It did not reach the Council first. It reached Earth. This time, the sender did not beg. They simply said, "We know you listen." And humanity did. Because long before starships and rail cannons, before councils and treaties, humans had learned a simple truth on a dangerous world. Survival meant standing together. The galaxy was only just beginning to understand what that meant.